Hi, welcome
Hi.
to Gender Nebulous 13. And this week, well, don't know where to start. It's been a busy week this week
It
with,
certainly has.
but, and I'm just getting over a bit of a hangover from last night's debacle.
Well, what were you doing last
Because
night?
we had the Gender Nebulous Christmas party, didn't we,
Oh,
at
the
York?
Gender Nebulous Christmas Party.
Well, it was like parties, but we had a nice meal, didn't we?
We
And
did. It
let's
was
go.
nice. We went to the Cherry Tree, didn't we,
Cherry
in
tree.
Blackrod?
Very nice.
And
Very
I think we
wonderful
discovered a new
service.
word, didn't we?
Yeah, well, I kept saying, book an Uber.
Book and Uber.
That's a word now.
So we Ubered our way there and
Yeah,
back. It was very good. The food was quite tasty, and I have to say the bill was a little more than we expected.
I think it was the drinks because we
But the
had
drinks, yeah, we had
cocktails,
like four really nice martini espresso cocktail thingies, didn't we?
and then we had
And a bottle of wine.
wine. And what did I have? I can't remember. I think I was pissed by the time I
What did you
started
have? You
eating.
had a lamb chop thing.
I can't remember honestly.
There
I've
was a
no
lamb
idea.
chop on your plate. I remember
I'll have to
that.
look at I'll have to look at the receipt to find out.
Oh yeah, you took
But
the receipt. You're going to put a claim in.
yeah, get me NHS
Get the
discount.
NHS to pay for it.
But no, I don't. I mean, it was a little treat for us. I don't eat out very much. It's like it was.
Yeah, it's once in a
It was
while. It's not like we do it every
but
night,
it's a little luxury.
Yeah.
Now and again the spice of life, whatever. But anyway, and it made me feel a lot better because it's been quite a rough week. There's been a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, so
With Twitter and me. I'll talk about this when we start talking about the topics. But with Twitter Spaces and certain people who I really shouldn't really be getting involved with, I don't think, and it's had a negative effect on me. And it's like it was like one of them things, where you dread looking at your phone and checking Twitter just in
yeah, well, I mean, it
case.
was a Twitter space. It was pretty awful, wasn't it? It wasn't a nice one.
Yeah, so we'll get on to
We'll get
that.
onto
And
that in a
just,
minute.
what else have we happened at the weekend?
Well, I've had a bit of a shitty week, really. It's been a difficult week due to all the weird stuff happening on Twitter. And I'm sure everybody's aware of what that was. That's our first topic that we're going to talk about. We're not going to mention any names, but if you've been following the story, you will know exactly what we're talking about. So, yeah, I mean,
Well, there was an article,
yeah,
let's just say this, about I call it transmedicalism. It's about this idea that there's a biological route or a biological validation kind of thing of being trans. Like you could find, you could have an undisputed argument that's a biological basis for trans identity. So it's a dangerous path because
it is.
I don't think. Well, the response to the article was obvious, wasn't it?
Well, the article never got published. There was a tweet saying it was going to get published, and then there was another tweet saying we're not going to publish it. And
But we are. You see, I'm going to say it was translucent that put because I'm not. I mean, I can't. We can't talk about it and not mention
no, I mean
that.
we're supposed
We
to be
don't.
doing a podcast where we talk about the news, and this was in the Twitter world news. So yeah, we
Yeah,
should talk
and
about it.
people know that we've worked in the past
Yeah.
with what it was called Steph's Place. So we have to talk about it because I just felt like it was really badly.
It could have been handled better.
Um,
Let's put it
the
that way.
way it was, well, the way it was posited, it was like we've got this exciting new, like they're going to tease it. They're not going to tell us what it is, but they're going to wait a week. And I was like, why do that?
Yeah, I
Just if
mean,
it,
the
if that's it.
problem I had with it, they're trying to put it out as a kind of like a scoop, and puffing it up into something that it's probably not. That was
Well,
my problem with it.
for me, the bigger picture is this idea that there's a biological, like, because in all the arguments with people who are anti-trans, they claim biology as the proof of, I was going to say proof of purchase, proof of concept. So it's like, that famous bit with Dr. Robert Winston when he was on Question Time and he said, sex is in every cell of your body, sex is immutable, kind of that the whole turfy argument is kind of built around that. But that's not our argument, but that's not the case we state for having the rights that we have. It's based on something else, because like non-binary, we know transness, I call it transness, I know that's not very scientific, but it exists on a spectrum, and like you could be completely identified as female, legally protected in law, but have no surgeries, have no, just not presenting any particular. It's not about how you look, is it?
No.
So it's not about the. It's not about the.
It's about what's going on inside.
Physicality.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was supposed to be a scientific publication that demonstrates that being trans is a biological condition. It sounds very much like transmedicalism, which is not the thing we should be really going down that road. I don't believe.
Yeah, I've got to say first, before we get into some of these topics that are quite heavy.
This is a heavy one.
Take these off, because it's hard to talk seriously when you've got these things dangling in your peripheries.
Yeah, a bit of a distraction.
But I did want to,
Happy New Queer, or Happy Queer Year, or Happy New Year Queer.
It's New Year's to some cultures somewhere, so don't be coming at me with the too soon.
So the thing with this medical thing, is going down the path of you're not trans enough unless you meet these medical standards. I don't need a test to prove who I am. Even if there was a test that proved who I am, I wouldn't take it because I know who I am. So I don't need that. I don't need that medical kind of proof of my identity. I don't need it.
There used to be a lot of talk, and I mean, you don't hear it so much now, but this idea of a gay gene, as if that
that's the same problem.
Legitimize your lifestyle, because it's like, well, being gay, obviously, it's about your sex attraction, right? We get that bit, but there's a lot more going on in somebody's life of the way they express themselves, their interactions with people, and it's not. I think if there was a gene for that, they would have found it, or they would. And if you do find it, what do you do with that?
Yeah, what are you going to do with that once you've found it? Then all the kind of negative things start to come around. Like, okay, we found this. We found this. Now we've got to find a cure, and then there's abortions, and then there's, you can't do this because you didn't pass the test. It's just ridiculous. It's madness.
I mean, I had heard it talked about, in various kind of scientific settings, like on certain radio programs where they talk about genetics and stuff. If parents could edit the gene or see that the gene would turn somebody trans or gay or disabled or whatever, would lead to whatever the parents dislike or might find difficult, or they would edit it out. And I think, well, that's eugenics.
It is. That's where it's going.
It's a damn dark path, and But you see, I don't really. The whole idea of being legitimately and validated, I don't buy that. I don't need that. I just need to be who I am. Whatever that is. I don't really know what. It took me a long time to figure it out.
It's based on how you feel on the inside. I mean, it doesn't matter what clothes you wear, if you wear makeup or not, or how you look. It's all based on your feelings and your identity about yourself. I mean, it's you shouldn't have to prove it in any way.
Well, I was thinking, if I could get a receipt from a doctor that says, yes, you're definitely trans, on your way now. It wouldn't change anything about my life, would it? And as a thought experiment, we can edit genes. We know that is possible now. So imagine if I could edit my chromosome to be XX instead of XY. What would it change about me? Fuck all. I'm still the same mass of flesh. And we wake up in the morning and we dress that flesh and we reboot our imaginations and minds, and that's what happens. And it's that bit that's important. It's not. I mean, the whole biology thing is bollocks, isn't it?
So had this publication been of any value, I mean, it should be published through the normal scientific medical publications with peer reviews. I mean, that's how these things are normally put out. You don't need to kind of make it into a scoop on Twitter and say we've found this amazing thing. I mean, it was just the wrong way of doing it. Anyway, I think we've probably said enough.
Yeah, just to add to that, like, it was people on Twitter that really were the peers reviewing, and they said, look, this is. I mean, we don't know what it is, but whatever it is, if it's what you say it's going to be, then we don't want it, and put it out. We can further criticize it.
I mean, if it had been put out as here's an article, we're not saying we agree with it. We'd like your opinion on it, It's just for opinion, and we can discuss it like, you know, in a sensible way. I mean, that would have been totally different vibe to it, but it was kind of pushed out as, you know, this is some revelation, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, it's not a revelation.
Anyway,
it's
lesson
disaster.
learned, I guess.
Well, it turned out to be a disaster, didn't it?
It was a disaster. Yeah.
When we know why.
So,
right.
I mean, the other thing, I mean, I think I should state this, is that I kind of I've made it known that I'm, you know, no longer associated. You know, I've kind of reiterated my kind of, you know, independence from it now. So I don't know how you feel about that, Freda, but
Well,
you know, this podcast is independent from all other organisations, and that's the way it's going to stay. You know, we'll collaborate. We can collaborate, but we don't answer to any other organisation. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought being part of a group would be more powerful because, you know, it's a singular voice on Twitter. But if you're part of a group of people that has a sit down at a meeting and say, look, we want to draw focus to this. We want this to be a positive thing. And that wasn't happening anyway. So I thought, well, you know, it was a tricky one, but you did the right thing, I think. And you know, we'll move on from it.
We'll move on,
and hopefully people
no hard feelings
learn from it. You know, we're all flawed. We all make mistakes. It's about how you deal with the mistake. I think.
But I think the thing I've learned from that is that you do need to kind of maintain your kind of autonomy, independence.
Yeah.
You know, whilst you collaborate with people at the same time. So yeah, I think that's important. Anyway. Yeah. So next one on our list here today, the mental health charity Samaritans has been reported to the Charity Commission for the only reason that they were showing support to trans people, because, you know, there's a high risk of suicide amongst trans people. I think we spoke about this last week a little bit because we were talking about Baroness Nicholson attacking them with a tweet that she put out, and now there's been a bit of a pile on, and they've been reported to the commission. And the commission has come out and said, we are assessing the information to determine whether there's a role for the commission in this matter. So, you know, it's a bit like, you know, when trans people say something on Twitter, they get piled on by TERFs. I mean, this seems to have happened to this charity, Samaritans. I mean, it's happened to mermaids, it's happened to charities. Like anybody who's talking positively about trans people has been attacked mercilessly on Twitter, you know?
Well, this is the culture that they've created, where they've got this like battalion of little attack dogs, and when one of the well-known gender criticals makes a tweet saying, you know, Samaritans are doing this, whatever, they'll pile on and they'll draft off emails to organisations and say they disagree with something they're doing. I don't actually know what they're actually disagreeing with. Are they saying that trans people shouldn't seek help with suicide prevention?
Well, it was all around like the numbers. I think they were disagreeing on the numbers, and you know, we put out the link to an article that was in Reuters last week that actually had a report with the numbers, and Samaritans were perfectly correct in what they were saying. You know, so it's just like I think this has all started with the Baroness, you know, Nicholson attacking them, and it's kind of snowballed from there.
Well, if you don't know, I mean, but this Baroness Nicholson is very well known to J.K. Rowling, and she's been pictured with her, and she's one of the people. She's very, you know, ultra conservative, you know, traditional, though kind of, you know, she has no concept of what it is to be trans. If you watch interviews with her, she just talks about, they're on a lot of drugs, and you know, their minds have been warped by gender ideology. It's like you know, you live in, what bubble do these baronesses live in? But you know, it's like they live in their own little worlds, don't they? And Twitter's just amplified these people because they've got the title Baroness. So somebody who's, I mean, they're in the corridors of power, these people. So they'll be amplified, and people will attach themselves to them because they think they're gonna their cause will be driven on because there's somebody in power supporting it. Did
you see the other Baroness we were talking about last week? Baroness, was it Hussey, or was it? No, it was Hussey. I think was that the one that made the mistake at the palace with the charity?
Well, Baroness Hussey, it was the one that asked the lady, "Where are you from?" And
Yeah, so
kept saying, "Where are you really from?"
Well, she's invited her back into the palace and apologised now. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did. Yeah, and it's like, well, it's up to the lady.
Yeah, I mean, was it a genuine apology? I don't know, but I guess they made some effort to try and put it right.
I don't know what went on there, and we'll probably never know. But it doesn't stop what happened from being wrong.
Well,
and
no,
it doesn't.
doesn't.
And all that's happened really is we've found out about it, because in most situations the black lady wouldn't speak up and would probably just go off in silence and go and complain about it to her best mate, and it would go no further, because these people have power. You know, if you're going into the palace, it's like already there's a disparity of power there.
Why is she still in the palace? I thought she'd stepped down, but she still seems to be in the palace. What's going on there?
Oh, sod the palace, burn it down. But yeah, I just think that story. I mean, this is a different story. The one with the Baroness Nicholson. I'm losing track of all these.
I know there's so many baronesses.
It's like
these rogue baronesses.
Why do we tolerate this nonsense all the time? There's like so many of them, and these are ones we hear about, and we hear about them when they do something stupid. And they're doing stupid things all the time. It's not an isolated incident. This is how they talk all the time. And the reason it's news is because they've been called out on it once. It's like they'll. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, how many other cases are there that we don't know about? Probably loads.
Yeah, exactly. It's not baronesses individually that are the problem. It's the system.
It's the system that creates them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a pyramid
it's
of
the power.
Yeah,
power people behind it.
It's insidious, and it needs. I mean, what can you do? This is British. This is British class system.
I think we need to get rid of the House of Lords. This is my opinion. It needs to be an elected house, an elected chamber. I don't believe
You see, I don't agree with that.
With all this House of Lords stuff. I mean, they're not elected. They need to be elected, in my opinion.
I want to get rid of the House of Commons.
Well, I want to get rid of that.
I want to get rid of centralised.
House of Freda.
I want government to be like. Everything is so Westminster centric. It's like, and it's weird. It's like these buildings. It's like This is another thing about the whole J.K. Rowling thing, Harry Potter. Because those buildings, everything about it's very that Englishness. It's about those kind of palatial.
There's a comment we just got from Plankton.
Oh, that's Roger.
Roger. Hello, Roger. It says the only important Baron is Baron Greenback.
That Danger Mouse. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Crumbs, Chief. Anyway, that might be an obscure reference.
I think it was.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with that. Bloody Baroness, Barons, bloody Lords, Duchesses, Duchy. I mean, it goes on forever. Marquis.
Have you been watching the Harry and Meghan videos?
Yeah, Netflix? This is really interesting.
I've watched the first three. I started watching the fourth one and I fell asleep.
Are you ready for my theory about this?
Go on.
Right. You've got The Crown now, the TV series.
I don't watch it, but go on. Yeah.
Well, what's happened is people are really enthralled by this because it's massive. The Crown, people love it because it's a drama, and it's about a drama of people that are actually a family that is still in a seat of power, and that's why it's interesting. So the royal family have had things exposed. I mean, some of it's dramatized, but that doesn't matter to the people watching. So what they want to do, the royal families want to control the narrative again. And the way to do it is to turn the palace into its own drama series. So if you have two rival houses, if you have the Harry and Meghan house, and if you have the Kate and William house, the public will start watching the royal family again.
It's a bit like Dallas, isn't it? It's like Dallas.
Well, yeah, but they can control through the press, through everything. They'll have had a meeting and say, look, this is how we're going to handle this. Now that's a bit. I mean, this is me. It's my theory. I don't know if it's true, but it's a good. It would be if I was in PR, if I was working for the royal family. This is what I would say to them to do. Create the narrative. Become the reality TV show. Become The Crown. And nobody will care about The Crown anymore. They'll be watching the royal family. And I think that's what it's all about. And the papers know they need a lot of sustenance from royal events and things like that, because it's always.
I mean,
been
they're
the
pretty
case
much doing that
that
anyway, though, aren't they? I mean, look what happened, with Prince Andrew, and he's the villain.
Yeah,
and then you've got Harry and
mean,
Meghan.
I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that the whole thing is invented to be a drama. And how anybody even tolerates the sight of Prince Andrew. I think the funeral of the Queen was the last time you'll ever see him in public.
I think there's some show coming out on Boxing Day about Prince Andrew. Have you seen the adverts on TV for that? I can't remember what it's called, but it looks hilarious.
Well, I mean, I think everybody would love to know what happened with Epstein and all that, and get a definitive thing. But there's just so much money sloshing around. They can buy people off, and that's what's happened, really, isn't it? And all the witnesses, all the women that were abused, and anybody that's going to come forward.
Well, I mean, a payment was made. Is that an admission of guilt? I'm not sure, but it feels very much like one.
Well, they'll say it's damage limitation.
Yeah,
But that's why it went to American courts, because in America the law.
Well, they wouldn't do anything about it in this country. The police investigated it and decided not to do anything with it.
Exactly, because the police
because it's too part of the system, aren't they?
But I was thinking that, when the Queen. I was watching the Queen's funeral with my mum, and we watched that moment when the Queen went down into It was like a really weird, emotional thing of seeing this coffin sink into the floor of a churchyard. Not a yard, the what do you call it, the altar.
Yeah.
And I looked at my mum and I said, that's it now, all the secrets are buried with her.
Yeah. She's in the crypt.
Yeah, in the crypt. They crept in the crypt, crapped and crept out again. But when I watched that coffin going down, it was like everything, all the secrets are in that coffin. Yeah, that's where everything is. Everything, every document, everything that was ever written that would incriminate anybody is in that coffin. Not the Queen. she's being burnt somewhere else.
I mean, you can go and open it and have a look. It's still there,
I mean, I'm not. Are you advocating body snatch?
No, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. So anyway, Wizard Lady's been in the news. The lady who we don't talk about. She's opened a sex abuse service and called it. Is it Beirs's place? Beirs's? I don't know how you say that.
It looks like Beirs'a.
It's B-B-I-R-A. Beirs'a.
It's Gaelic, isn't it? It's a Gaelic
Scottish
name.
Goddess of Winter is what it stands for. So this is a like a sex abuse service place in Edinburgh, but it's excluding trans women. It includes trans men because they deem them, or the GCs deem them as women. So they're included, but trans women are excluded. Now, that's fine, whatever. But, what I'd like to know is that, under the Equality Act, transgender people are protected from discrimination, but services can exclude trans people from single-sex spaces if the exclusion is a proportionate means of achieving a legitimate aim. So I'd like to know what is their legitimate aim and how have they shown it to be proportionate. And you can't just declare these things, on your own. You have to get a judge to agree with what you've put forward as your legitimate aim. Well, how is it proportionate and how is it the least discriminatory way of doing it? I mean, if they haven't done that, this thing they're setting up is probably illegal. It's going to get challenged.
Well, this links to another story about the legal case to define woman, because
it does.
What J.K. Rowling wants to do, and what they want to say, 4 women in Scotland want to say, we want a cis women girl only. Now, the only way to do that,
but it has to be legal. It has to be legal.
But even if they could do it in equality law, just park that for a minute. This is just me having a little thought experiment. But you'd have to put, we exclude trans people.
You would have to be known before you got there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because that would have to be on their literature and on anything they put out. Because if you were a trans woman and you were sexually assaulted or anything, and then you went there.
But can you imagine that situation where you've been assaulted and then you're turning up at this place and you turned away? You imagine how upsetting that would be.
So then their argument would be, well, there are already services that accept trans.
Well, the other services accept all people who need them. They're not,
exactly.
They're not excluding anybody.
Yeah. So then they would say, well, what is it? Why do trans women want to be around? Because there's this idea.
It's not about wanting to be around anybody. It's about needing the service that they're providing.
Nobody wants to go into.
Nobody wants to go to a sex abuse centre, do they? Goodness sake.
Right, and I'll tell you now. I mean, concentrating on this when there's so little fun. I mean, I'm not sure about Scotland, but in this country, I mean, there is if I can tell you now, in Manchester, if you wanted to access rape crisis, there's only one place. In a kind of crisis emergency, your options are go to the police, A&E, or the crisis. Now, it's going to be impossible, because if you wanted a system where you would only ever be treated by cis women, it's not going to happen, because you have to make a contact with somebody to be referred.
Yeah.
So it might be the police, it could be ambulance staff, you could turn up at A&E, you could get a family member to help you, but there's no guarantee along that chain of events that only cis women are going to attend to you, because for one simple reason, there's just not enough money to pay enough people to pay, you know what I mean, to ensure that. Now people want to do the best safeguarding they can, but they're prevented from doing that because the system is financially. But now somebody like J.K. Rowling can come along with the billions of pounds and say, look, I'm going to do this. Great. But you're not helping anyone. You're not actually remedying the systemic problem. You're creating a new system that excludes a tiny, minuscule percentage of society to make a political point. That's what 4Women Scotland are. They're a political organisation. They're not a women's rights organisation. They exist because they're against Nicola. It's all about Nicola Sturgeon, because they see her as this progressive, whatever she is, and she wants independence. Not that they're against that. And so the self-ID thing, which they always bring up, is just a red herring, and as well, because we all self-ID in a sort of in a social sense, but it wouldn't make any difference in an extreme case like where you're seeking rape crisis services. I mean, I'd hate to be in Scotland and accidentally. Well, I don't think it's. I just think it's a red herring. I don't think it's even going to happen. I don't think it's going to get off the ground. I think it's just political wrangling.
Well, it might. I don't know if it's already opened or not. I don't know. But the thing that gets me is that this woman, the wizard lady, she's got millions and millions of pounds. Why doesn't she? If she's so concerned about these kind of places, why doesn't she open them across the whole UK or fund the ones that already exist? That's it. Maybe she does. Maybe she does put money into some of the others. I don't know. But but the focus, if you're that rich, the focus, and you're that passionate about this, your focus would be let's help all the shelters, in the UK, and make sure that they're helping all the people that they need to help. You wouldn't be focusing on one in Edinburgh to exclude a minority group like us.
Exactly. And another thing is, like, if it fails, which it probably won't get off the ground, but they'll say it's because we had loads of hate from trans rights activists, and they'll blame it on that. They'll blame it on something like that, and the way that they're going to posit it, it's like I was reading about it. I got talking to a journalist who said she supports J.K. when she can't find anything about her that's transphobic, blah blah blah. And this conversation, and this is where we ended up in this Twitter space. Yeah. Where the debate was, is Beirs's place transphobic, or is it a triumph? Like, it's not. It can't be a triumph because it's not even started yet.
So this person was somebody who calls themselves E.J. Rosetta.
Yeah, E.J. Rosetta. Now, I saw a Twitter thing and I commented on it, and I had a bit of a ding dong with her on Twitter. Well, not really. We just had a couple of comments.
So you went in the space as a speaker.
And she asked me to speak in this space because she was putting it together. And I thought, go on then. Because I asked her if she wanted to come on this podcast initially, because I'm interested in talking to gender critical people and trying to get into the mindset of, trying to work it out. Anyway, so it just became a bin fire, this Twitter space, because all of Rose EJ's followers have come on board because she supports J.K. Rowling, right? So the question about is J.K. Rowling transphobic? Well, it doesn't really matter if J.K. Rowling is transphobic when everybody that has "I stand with J.K. Rowling" in their profile is. It's not. I mean, you could say guilt by association, but it's not just that, is it? So everybody, there was a lot of really negative stuff going on in this space, and I think there was a couple of other trans people in the space. I couldn't see it all because I was talking in it, but I think there was a lady called Lily, and Joss Pryor was in it, and they said to me privately, "This is bullshit. These people." There was like going on about men in dresses and just the usual.
Yeah, it was all the usual things.
Nastiness, just petty, really. I made my points really clearly. You know, I told like the stuff I've just been saying about, you know, you'd have to put a sign on the door to say "sod off trans people."
Yeah. I mean, the other one point we should probably make is that, you know, if somebody's opening up a sex abuse service, you know, I mean, that's a good thing. It's helping some women. But the problem with it is that it's excluding a minority. So, you know, on one hand, it's good that something has been opened because it could probably use the extra capacity. But, you know, you've got to deal with this discrimination that they're trying to do at the same time, which is the negative thing about it. I mean, if they were to be inclusive and follow the rules of the land, you know, it would be a good thing.
Yeah. Well, it's but the problem is, like, the whole thing was biased and weighted.
Well, yeah, it was biased from the start. Even the question that she was asking, triumph or transphobic. I mean, it's all set up. She's preaching to like 90% of people on that call were of her opinion.
Yeah.
So you know,
so really, what has kind of like a setup there? What has actually happened there? She's created a space in which you can incite hate.
Yeah.
And she needs to take responsibility for that. I'm fine with free speech, whatever, but if you've got to take some responsibility for, because the people that messaged me after were actually really upset. You know, I'm just trying to find something. You know, Lily.
Yeah.
And she messaged me, and she was just really. I can tell by the way she was speaking in the space that she was upset about it, and people would just come and say, "You're a man," and things like that. And there was a woman, an American woman, who was like a sort of Trumpian, like ultra-conservative right-winger kind of person. And
well, I wouldn't. I would advise people not to go in these spaces unless you are really kind of in a good place and confident about what you're going to say, because they are absolutely awful spaces to go into and listen to. It's not good. It's not good at all.
Well, anyway, so since then, I kind of thought I'm not gonna do that again, because I like battling and having a to and fro and like seeing if my arguments work. You know, like I can see the value in that, can see and test the argument. But none of the people in that space had. Because if you want to prove that J.K. Rowling is transphobic, listen to that space.
I mean, the thing went on for about 5 hours. It was about 5 hours long.
Well, she's provided the evidence, if you need it, that the people who all have J.K. Rowling or go on about J.K. Rowling on Twitter, they only have one common denominator, and it's not women's rights, is it? So that was.
Well, I mean, it was recorded by EJ herself, so the thing is recorded on Twitter. If anybody happens to stumble across it, I think what we should do is maybe take some snippets out of it and just kind of deconstruct some of the stuff that goes on in there.
Do that. Well, I mean, there was a positive thing that did come out of it. Is I made friends with Lily, who runs Spirit Level in Liverpool, which is a trans support group.
Yeah.
And they just meet in Liverpool.
So shout out to Lily if you're listening.
And that's good, you know. And the other person, there was one person in the chat that called EJ out and said, "Oh, you've been seen with Kelly J. Keane," and she just kind of went, "Well, so what?" You know, she's not even going to reply to that because she knows we know who she is, and it's not like I'm not getting any sort of vendetta against her. I just think it's, you know, we know that Julie Bindle was listening, and she wouldn't come. Well, she wouldn't come in the space.
She wouldn't come in and speak though. She would only send messages in the background.
But I know why she wouldn't come in that space, because she's seen my interview with Lisa Townsend on GB News, and she's like, I don't want to go up with Freda. She's going to ruin me. She's going to dismantle my argument.
The power of the Freda.
There you go. So if you're listening to this, Julie Bindle, chicken.
Yeah, make an appointment.
Right, next.
Next. Okay, so this is quite it's not a bit of a non-story really, but it's Cambridge Dictionary has updated the definitions of man and woman to include trans people. So,
should do anyway.
An adult who lives and identifies as male or female, though they may have been said to have a different sex of birth. So the definition now includes trans men and trans women as the sex.
So what did it say before? Did it just say transgender person who changed sex or something?
No, it was just like adult human male or female, But now it says...
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I get it now.
An adult who lives and identifies as female, though they may have been said to have a different sex at birth, is still included in the definition of women.
Fantastic, we're in the dictionary now.
Yeah, so buy the Cambridge Dictionary, not the others. Get the Cambridge one.
Yeah.
I think a few other dictionaries have been doing this recently as well.
Interestingly, though, my mum's got a really old dictionary. I don't know.
A dictionary. I mean, it kind of reflects the use of the language at the time, doesn't it? Yeah, custard tart.
Mm-hmm. I'm hungry. But anyway, so yeah.
But dictionary is reflecting how your language is used in a daily kind of sense. So I mean, it's good that they've done that because that is how it's used.
So my mum's dictionary, which she uses when she's doing a crosswords, it's really old.
You have a look in there. Look under woman, see what it says.
And I did.
By the way, I noticed there's a new book on your shelf.
I've not finished this story yet. You keep interrupting. Do you mean this?
Yes, I do mean this.
Is this my Christmas present?
Ah, that's very nice. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Thank you. That'll be a nice holiday read.
Yeah, like bedtime reading.
So yeah. So
Go
I
on,
did
finish
look
your
in
story.
Sorry. Forget it. I did look in my mum's old dictionary from 1950 whatever, and it says woman, wife. So there you go.
Well, there you go. That's old. Need to get rid of that. Throw it on the bonfire.
Yeah, but that is part of the. If you say to your Alexa, what? Oh God, I better not say it.
Don't say it too loud, or she'll set her off. Yeah,
if you said what is a woman to Alexa, listen to what it says because it does say at the end wife, which is funny when you think about it.
Okay, so the next story is also based in Scotland. This was around. It's kind of related to the one with the wizard lady, kind of, but not really. This is 4 women in Scotland have lost a legal case over the definition of woman. Yeah. So, a judge has ruled that transgender women with a gender recognition certificate can legally be defined as women when it comes to legislation that aims to ensure gender balance on public boards. Yeah. So I think the judge, I think she's a judge, Lady Haldane. She had issued her paper on this, whatever you call that thing. And in the conclusion, she's saying, I conclude that in this context, which is the meaning of sex for the purposes of the 2010 Act, sex is not limited to biological or birth sex, but includes those in possession of a GRC obtained in accordance with the 2004 Act, that's the Gender Recognition Act, stating their acquired gender and thus their sex. So it's kind of, a legal case that they'd lost, and it just kind of reconfirms that, the legal definition of woman includes trans people.
Yeah, I was thinking, yes, this is a positive story, but it shouldn't be a story. This is how it should be.
This is the law. The law is it's just like it's just this judge kind of agreeing with the law.
Like I said, we're so used to these things not going the right way. Like I wouldn't be surprised if some judge somewhere said that repeal this, get rid of the gender recognition thing, and that would be a motion. But this is we trust that the people in power are doing the right thing, and this was the right thing. But it's so easy; it could have gone the other way.
But I think I'm not sure whether this is only in relation to gender balance on public boards. I'm not sure, but that's what the case was about. Whether it has a wider implication, I don't know.
Well, what's interesting is on this story, the other linked story, like the kind of if you like this, you might like that. It's about Edinburgh University under fire for the the film Adult Human Female. Yeah, well, there was a bit of a protest outside, obviously, because it's obviously a transphobic trope film. I'm going to review it, but
yeah, I've not watched it.
So
this.
I
don't think I really want to, but there you go.
But they reckon they're trying to shut down the little. I mean, the film's on YouTube, for God's sake. Nobody's shutting down your ability to watch this film.
Yeah,
you
just
can't
watch it inside
university. The universities don't want to be associated with arseholes. That's what it is. Get real. Right.
And then there's another legal opinion has come out from a human rights expert, Victor. Now, please forgive me for my pronunciation here. It's Madrigal Borloz. I think Victor Madrigal Borloz. I think that's how you say it. Sorry if it's not quite right.
Madrigal Borloz.
Yeah, something like that. So
anyway,
it's a legal opinion of his and the UN's long-standing position that legal recognition of gender identity is a human right and self-ID is the appropriate standard for it. So this is all to do with the Scottish reform of the GRA, and this UN guy has come out in support of that with a report, and it's quite a long report. I'm just going to read out some of the kind of paragraphs that were kind of. I will
admit I've not read it. I've not read this
it's
report
long.
yet.
You can. I've linked it in the chat in the notes. So the first one. Finally, some of these arguments appear to require that to be able to enjoy their human rights, gender diverse persons must produce absolute evidence that no predatory man will ever attempt to abuse the system of legal recognition of their gender identity. This would not only be an unreasonable burden, it would be a measure of discriminatory, anti-democratic and authoritarian nature. Similarly,
that's what
the human rights of trans women are not dependent on the hypothetical risk that predatory men could disguise themselves as such and perpetrate crime. I am therefore of the opinion that political consideration of legal recognition of gender identity does not require absolute proof that no person will ever attempt to abuse that system. And finally, in democratic societies, the possibility of abuse of rights must be foreseen and addressed through appropriate evidence-based preventative prosecution and accountability mechanisms, which, as I have expressed above, do not include arbitrary obstacles to legal recognition of gender identity. So, pretty strong worded report, and he's, I've read the thing. It's good.
Well, that's a very eloquent thing, and that's what we've been saying less eloquently for a long time. And, like we're not legal people, so we don't write these kind of official documents. So we just rant about idiots trying to say we can't use single-sex spaces, and it's kind of when it's laid out like that, it's like
it's
makes absolute sense. It's
makes
obvious.
sense. Although it's a long read, I would definitely recommend go and have a read of it, try and understand it. It's very legally worded, but it's good.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, I will read the whole thing, and I've got my transgender law book now.
Yeah, you've got your law book, so you can look up all the kind of like the tricky bits. Yeah, but it's based on UN position and European Union. It brings all that into it. It's not just about UK law. It's much wider than that. It talks about laws under the European, Article 2, Article 8, and all that stuff. So it's pretty good.
The frustrating thing is, though, even though that is very clear, it's very, obvious, and it sounds, no newspaper in the UK is going to give a toss about that. They'll wait till they can dig up one instance of some abhorrent act that one trans person has done, and then they'll make that a full-page story and get someone like Baroness Nicholson to caveat it with their opinion, and that's what you'll hear about. You won't hear about this. You'll hear about it from us. You'll hear about it from other trans activists and people like trans rights. And
you probably never hear anything from the government on this. They'll just ignore it.
No, you won't, because it's not. It's a boring story, isn't it? There's no salacious sexual dimension. There's no.
Who is this guy from the UN? What does he know? He's no expert.
Exactly.
Well, actually, he is an expert.
Yeah, I mean, if I copied and pasted this into an argument I was having with somebody that said I shouldn't be allowed to piss in peace, they wouldn't read this, would they? They'd go, get away from me. They're like, stop it with your facts.
Facts, He wants facts.
Yeah.
He wants facts and experts. They're overrated, aren't they, obviously?
Yeah, and then they'll send me an article from something like what these fake newspapers like the Baltimore Evening Standard and
and try and sell it to you as fact.
Yeah. Well, there's
so here's the real facts,
it.
but no, here's the better fact from this shitty newspaper I found. It's like,
and adverts in it for Bitcoin.
Yeah, there were no adverts for Bitcoin in this report from the UN, by the way.
No, just check. Well, that's a good barometer actually. If you do see
if there's an advert for Bitcoin, and it's rubbish.
If you see a lot of shitty adverts at the bottom of a news story where it's like Bitcoin, cash for gold, what else? Oh, there was one I saw recently. Like these really weird Wish kind of, heated onesies. If you see adverts, I mean, I'm not.
Actually, I wouldn't. I'm not opposed to a heated onesie.
More heated onesies, please. But what I mean is these crap. Anyway, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but exactly the point I'm trying to make is that people don't read factual, legal, detailed, but well thought out things. They want to read the bit of entertainment that gets the pleasure receptors pinging, and that's fear narratives, and it's like there's somebody out there who's going to chase me and get me. It's like fear. It's like a whole endorphin rush all the time on Twitter, isn't it?
It is.
Like, when really most of it's like a lot of the stuff that people think is going on. Like it's like it isn't. Horrible things do happen in the world. Nobody's saying they don't. They don't. But the direction they're coming from is never what they think, is it? It's always something really mundane. Anyway, so that's a good. That was a good. Report there.
And then the final story on our list today is the one about the LGB Alliance having an office at 55 Tufton Street. This has been posted on Twitter by a couple of people, Guy Lambert and Lee Hurley. One, Guy he describes himself as a creator, storyteller, communicator, and I've put the link in the chat. Sorry, in the notes. And Lee Hurley is a journalist, and one of them posts a letter, and it has the LGB Alliance address on it as 55 Tufton Street, and the other one is I think it's a statement from their managing director, LGB Alliance managing director, Katie Barker, basically just confirming that yes, we have an office in 55 Tufton Street, and we use this office because it's convenient. Which is a load of bullshit. I mean, why on earth would any charity that's supposed to be an LGBT charity base itself in something like Tufton Street, which is, conservative right-wing headquarters for the UK? Why would they do that? Why not use a different office? Right.
Well, I've been talking about Tufton Street for a bit.
We spoke about it on the podcast a few times,
and the reason I noticed this creeping in, because I watch Talk TV and I watch GB News. I don't know why, I just do, and I watch a lot of these kind of, more sort of right wing kind of things because I'm keeping my eye on certain stories. And I noticed the guests they were having were all kind of coming from one or two, three organisations that were based at Tufton Street. And they were the Institute of Economic Affairs, the New Culture Forum. I think Christian Concern was one of them. And the thing that connected them all is that they were all very interested in trans people for some reason. Now, why would an organisation called the Institute of Economic Affairs care about what trans people are doing? Well, the reason it's because they're like these ultra conservative, right wing, very well funded think tanks. And so when I saw this story, it was like, oh yeah, I know this was just a matter. But to link the LGB Alliance directly to it, that just kind of
shocking.
It's like, and but the thing is, what's frustrating is because Lee Hurley?
Yeah,
he's made this long post on Substack about because he was trying to get James O'Brien to talk about this issue, and James O'Brien's a bit on the fence. James O'Brien's, if you don't know, he's a presenter on LBC, and but he wouldn't. But he's appealing to him to try and get him to cover this story. But it feels like nobody's in the media is listening, because it just sounds it sounds like a massive conspiracy, and it is, in a way.
Well, it makes you wonder, who in LGB Alliance has these connections to Tufton Street? Is it Bev Jackson? Is it this managing director lady, Katie Barker? Who is it in there that has these connections? Do they all have connections to Tufton Street?
Well, if you look at where they
makes it very political, conservative, and right wing because it's based in that building.
Yeah, of course it does. Well, it proves that they're not really a charity.
Yeah, so it's not really a charity, is it? If it was a charity, there's probably no other charities operating from that place.
They're a lobby group that found, there's mileage.
I mean, that would be a better term for them, a lobby group, because that's what they do. They're not really doing anything charitable, are they? What do they do charity-wise? Do they, I don't understand what they're doing as a charity.
No. When anybody asks, nobody comes up with anything.
There's no answer.
And they seem to spend a lot of time hassling other charities like Mermaid.
Yeah, so all the money they get is spent on legal cases harassing trans people, basically.
And Alison Bailey, I mean, the Alison Bailey Stonewall thing, I mean, I don't know if the money came out the same channels for that, but I can imagine if it's connected to Tufton Street, I can see how these.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know the connections. We're speculating.
Yeah, but it seems obvious, doesn't it? We speculate, but we're not speculating based on nothing, are we?
No, I mean, we're speculating about some of the things we just said there. But the fact is that the managing director of LGB Alliance has confirmed that they do operate from that building. So, I mean, work it out for yourselves.
It's like shouting into the void, really, trying to get journalists. Because I've tried to get journalists to look at things, and when I've been on, like, there's a Talk TV. He's not there anymore, Daryl Morris. I spoke to him and said, "Can we cover this story because I think it's really important? Can we talk about how the LGB Alliance and it's like they can't get a handle on the depth of it. Do you know what I mean? Because to us, it seems like it's an obvious thing that they're not doing good in the world. Because we look at their Twitter feeds and we see it's full of, little parasites who just use their hashtags to hurt people and cause, just trolls basically, aren't they? Most of their followers. And yeah, and
I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with the case that was brought by Mermaids. I'm not sure where that's gone. It's probably pending.
Well, there's been a lot. I mean, it took a massive nosedive, didn't it?
Well, it's probably stuck in the system pending a hearing or something. These things drag on.
Can't really say anything about it, can we? Because there's nothing to know yet. I thought there'd be I think what's going to happen.
I think it's in the new year.
Because I spoke to somebody that works for a charity, and she told me about what the Charity Commission actually do. She said what they'll probably do is both charities will keep their status, and it's not a case of them versus the other. It's the Charity Commission looking into, or the Charity Commission being told to look into a certain charity. So they'll probably say, look, you've got 12 months to turn this round. You've got 12 months to prove you're worthy of charity status. And usually the only time in the past that a charity has lost their charitable status is to do with financial fraud. That's kind of like so there's none of that. They don't have the charity doesn't necessarily have to do a lot, because that's not what they're being judged on. If they do one thing a month, if they do one, it doesn't really matter, because a charity is just
as long as you're following the reason why you are a charity, and
but there's
no financial dodginess going on.
Linking them to Tufton Street. I wonder if it's too late now to.
I mean, it's probably there's no illegality in being linked to Tufton Street. It's just the optics of it are pretty shocking, aren't they? Based on what we know about Tufton Street.
Well, I think my not theory. My assumption is that it's the New Culture Forum that are behind the link with LGB, because they're based at Tufton Street, and if you look at the YouTube channel,
it was the home of Brexit too, wasn't it? It's the home of all kinds of strange conservative ideas.
Yeah, but Michael Gove is part of that New Culture Forum. So make of that what you will.
We were talking about Samaritans before. They're being looked at by the Charity Commission. So yeah, I'd be very shocked if anything happened to them, because they've been around for years and years. They've done absolutely nothing wrong, and the Charity Commission is saying that they're assessing the information to determine if there's a role for the Commission in that matter. So, probably not even going to do anything with it.
Well, yeah, it's like the whole thing that whenever sometimes I feel like even if there was a horrific, I mean, it's awful to think about, there'd be an attack on a trans person, and if somebody wrote, "I love J.K. Rowling" on that crime scene, no, even that wouldn't. The papers would still say, "Oh, we're worried about J.K. Rowling now," because they just have the blinkers on about everything. So how big a smoking gun do we have to show people to say this is what's going on? But this is the facts of what's going on, and this is what is motivating it. Yeah. It's not. They don't care about gay, lesbian, bisexual people. 4 Women Scotland don't care about women's rights. Some of them might, we all have, but the purpose of their existence is not that. It's a political will. They want to influence votes.
So they're a lobby group. They're not a charity.
Exactly. They're all lobby groups. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Now, if J.K. Rowling wants to throw money at something, great. No, it's not for me to decide what she spends her bloody money on. But I found a Daily Mail article from about 10 years ago recently, and it was like, do you know where they usually pick on a celebrity and go, this is what J.K. It was like, look how much money she's got. She spends it on handbags and all this. It was like a takedown. It's like, well, they used to do that to her, but when she started making noises they stopped criticizing her because they knew she had value to them for some other reason. So I think that's probably why J.K. Rowling does go in for this in a way, because she's protected by those.
It's interesting how you never actually hear from her directly other than tweets.
No, she never gives interviews.
She never gives interviews. You never see her on TV. You never see her doing anything publicly other than tweeting, and then other people kind of sending out the message for her. Yeah. It's very telling that.
Well, she was talked about on Woman's Hour this week.
But why doesn't she appear on Woman's Hour then?
But she sent Susan Moore almost a sort of PR person to go and speak on her behalf about this charity.
I'm not sure if Susan Moore is the PR person, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's the optics
it comes
of
across
that.
As, yeah.
So why can't J.K. Rowling go on to Woman's Hour? What is she too good for that? Why can't
go
she
on the
go
show?
on BBC? I don't even think she'd get a rough ride on the BBC. I think they kind of just talk about the good charity work she does, and now all these horrible trans rights activists trying to upset her and make her cry. And the white woman, there's a I can't remember where I read it now, but there's this oh God, what is it? This concept of white woman's tears. When there was racist attacks in America, and the women would say, "Oh, black men are trying to get me," and it'd be like this old damsel in distress thing, and then black men would go and get beaten up, and even worse, like don't want to go, thinking about the horrors of that right now. But what I'm saying is the kind of cis women's tears thing going on, where you'll start, they'll say, "Oh, the trans rights activists are all coming at me. It's all death threats. It's all this." It's not. There's no. I've never seen any evidence of a real death threat aimed at J.K. Rowling. Maybe Twitter, but I get that kind of crap, and I've only got 1,000 and odd followers. So she's got how many millions? So I don't know. I mean, nobody should ever get death threats.
No, absolutely not.
Never going to excuse that kind of behaviour, right? And nobody should be feeling intimidated by anyone. But when she keeps talking about this and making anybody that stands up to her to be threatening to her, whole cult or whatever she's basing on. But yeah, that's how it feels. That's what But I think it'll just continue like this until there's because you can't.
I don't see how it can end. How's what's the mechanism for all this to end? Where are we going with it?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there isn't. I don't think.
I think once the GRA reforms have been done in Scotland, which is the final vote, stage 3 vote, is next week on the 21st, I think. Right. So I think once that's done, and it's probably going to get approved, I almost 100% guarantee it's going to get approved. That law will then change in Scotland, I mean, that could be, quite a watershed moment, because then you'll see that, okay, nothing's going wrong after this change has been made. It's going to put a lot of pressure on England to make the change, and Wales, and Northern Ireland too. But I guess once this argument over GRA reform is out of the way and nothing went wrong and everybody's still,
well, there's always going to be
okay using these facilities, so then most of their argument kind of falls away.
Well, there's always going to be people that don't understand trans people, and there's always going to be people who are bigoted, and that's always going to, because people are just generally, they're frightened of what they don't understand, blah blah blah. But that's fine. I don't need everybody in the world to accept that, and I can't ever expect that. But what I don't want to see is the British press, especially, and certain journalists making a living out of it and pushing the fear narrative and amplifying, because it's a kind of grooming. This kind, this like the turfs talk about being peaked. I call it, that is a kind of psychological grooming, like to say, look at this, so this is connected to this. So when that happens, and there's single-sex spaces, and they're trying to get into sports as well, and then next, it's about prisons. It's like a sort of drip, and if you're say if you're a traumatized person, say you've had trauma in your life, and you might be, for whatever reason, you need a scapegoat, you need something to say, that's the reason I feel this way. And it's an easy option and lazy thinking to say, yeah, it's trans women, and because it's a layer of misogyny there as well, because we know men are abusive, we know people are abusive, we know women are abusive, but when you can focus it on something that is, the trans thing, that it's like when people used to look at, gay men and think that they were trying to entice young boys, and that would be associated, and then negative associations with being gay that way. Yeah, I'm sure that happened. There would have been cases of gay men luring in young boys, but they would they would do is they would say, well, that's it, that's why you should hate gay people. And it's like, well, no, that's stupid, because once you go down that road, there's no coming back, is there, really? Logically, you've created a connection in your mind that links every time you see a gay person to wrongdoing, and that's what they do with trans, because they want you to link like it'll say sexually predatory trans woman in the Daily Mail. They don't care about the rest of the story. It's just that headline that they want to hammer, and that's what J.K. Rowling is just legitimizing and validating the opinions of people that are very, I think, they're traumatized. A lot of the women that have had conversation, I've pulled away from those conversations because I thought, this isn't helping anyone, arguing with somebody that is, because I mean... No,
but it's interesting to understand, like, we've spoken about this, you and I, around, taking some of these topics that the gender crits kind of always repeat and keep going on about, day in, day out. And we were going to kind of, okay, on this topic, this is what the gender crits say. And we were going to try and, dissect that argument into, something based on, this is what the law says, and this is why it's not quite right. I think that would be useful. And some of those recordings you've done gives us the material to kind of use for that discussion around the talking points of all these like gender crit points, So we should do that.
Those Twitter spaces that I've been in, and what it is, it's a forum for people to kind of express a kind of prejudice openly.
Yeah, and to have it reinforced.
And have it reinforced, and make themselves feel that, and they've formed a little community.
Yeah, they found other people who have the same opinion, so they just reinforce each other.
It's like, so it's like dangerous, that, because that's kind of cult-like thinking.
But it is.
They think.
I mean, they accuse us of the same thing.
The irony is, they think trans ideology is the problem. There's no ideology. That's the ideology. If there's a gender ideology, it's coming from that.
Yeah, I mean, trans people, we've said this before, they're just trying to live their life and, best they can. And that's it.
I've just got to say to hello to Sarah in the chat,
Sarah's
and
posting.
Lindsay.
Nothing went wrong in the Republic of Ireland.
But yeah, I mean, I've made some sort of. I've got to admit something right today. I've got a really bad toothache because I chipped my tooth when I was taking. I'm not going into details. It's pretty gross. So I've probably not been as eloquent as I normally am. Am I ever eloquent? I don't know. But I've got, I've still got.
Yeah, I've got mine.
To look forward to. All right.
I have my
So where are these Sainsbury's this week?
These are Sainsbury's, yes. Sainsbury's.
Right, let's try because.
So I've got the Portuguese one.
Last week was Asda's.
The pastel nata.
Oh, yours is too posh for me. Hello, Rebecca. Are you not just joining us now, and you think the whole thing has been about reviewing the quality
custard
of
tarts from around the world?
Well, this is Sainsbury's. So because the pastry's a bit softer in that one.
I like these because they've got the flaky pastry, whereas
I've not.
The other ones have got I'm not sure what you call it, but the normal custard tarts have got that. What kind of pastry is that?
I have no idea.
It's like crumbly pastry rather than crispy, flaky pastry.
I'm not Mary Berry, am I? So.
Are you not? I thought you were.
I mean, if there's a face of pure evil...
All this time I thought you were Mary Berry, and you're not. You let me down. It's going to
look like Mary Berry.
You let me down.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm Mary Queen of Scots.
Freda, Queen of Scots. So you're still moving to Scotland then? Is that still on your agenda?
Well, no, because I've got to look after my mum. Yeah. And I do like Scotland to visit. But...
Take your mum with you.
Oh, I gave my mum that other custard tart. You know, the one you gave me.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Have I converted her?
She didn't. She wouldn't be convinced it was a custard tart though. She thought,
well, it is a custard tart. It's got a custard in it.
Foreign muck.
Foreign muck. Unbelievable.
No, she didn't say that. But yeah. So what else was it I wanted to talk about? Because I wanted to talk about. I was saying about the Twitter Spaces. Don't go in them because
don't go in them.
I've
been in a few now, and they've all been horrible.
But
unless you've got a strong constitution and you've got some strong PPE, don't go in.
What I'm going to do is start a Twitter space.
A nice, like the antidote.
Yeah, let the people in the chat here, and then some other people that I can link in and say, I'll put it up as scheduled. And then anybody can come in, like a gender critical person could come in and we give them the floor. You know, free speech, everything, but don't start being abusive.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not there to incite hate, are we? We're there to talk about custard tart.
I want to talk about the facts,
whatever,
the law, the real truth behind this stuff.
I'm just checking something. I think Argentina won the World Cup.
Okay, what about the spoiler you just broke?
Oh, sorry. Well, I'll have to put that in the description that there's a spoiler.
There's a spoiler, yeah. You just spoiled the spoiler.
I've won. I'm just looking at how much I've won.
Oh, you won some money? You had some money on that?
Well,
last time I looked, when we started recording this, it was 2-2. I was going into extra time, and now I guess it's all over. Was it a penalty shootout?
I'm just looking. Anyway, no, I'm not getting into football.
No. This is not a football show.
I'm not David Baddiel, am I? I'm Mary Berry, Queen of Scots.
Mm-hmm.
So, shall we call that a wrap?
It's a wrap. That's the Christmas wrapping done.
So happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. Happy New Year. We're going to have a little break.
I'm going to put these back on now, actually.
We're going to have a little break, aren't we? We're not going to do one on Christmas Day because we're going to be busy with family and doing family stuff. So I'm not sure. Happy New Year. I'm not sure when our next one is scheduled for, but it will be probably 2 weeks today. Is that right?
I've just noticed my rainbow's gone off.
Yeah, you probably flattened the battery.
That was back. The rainbow is back.
The rainbow is back. So when's our next one then? Date-wise, what are we doing the next one?
Oh, God, so Sunday.
So it's not going to be on the 25th because it's Christmas Day. And then the following Sunday is New Year's Day.
Whatever the Sunday is after...
This New Year's Day. New Year's Day.
Well, after that.
So that would be the 8th of January.
Yeah.
So I think we'll put something out. Well, we could record something of the week of the 26th that week and put it out on the 1st as a pre-recorded one, maybe. Yeah, we'll do
that sounds good. Right. Well, I need to get my teeth sorted out because.
Well, I'm not a dentist. Go see a dentist.
I'm not going to come round so you can knock me tooth out.
I'm not.
I'm blaming you.
It's not my. Okay. Blame me.
Right. Don't forget to subscribe.
Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Christmas. Have a wonderful Boxing Day.
And a happy New Queer.
And we'll talk to you very soon. Bye. Bye.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra. Ta-ra. Bye. Ta-ra.
Tell me when it's off.